So, Francesca, does love resolve pain?
The best thing I've found over the years is going to yoga and getting in the zone and getting back to this peace, to the whatever it is, whether it's God, lying back and being, I am the space between my thoughts. You know, the overthinking, because if you can get past the mind, then you just get to this love.
Yeah.
So everything that's in between you and love is, I guess, the problem or the pain. It's also, as well, with astrology is so helpful because my dog died when I was 11.
Yeah.
And my best friend left, and a few things happened. I basically just lost my mind. I was very, very depressed. I kept going to the doctor every day. I was at the school nurse, like, help me, because nobody could help me. Like, my parents couldn't help. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. I was just really deeply unhappy, deep. And it was, nobody understood. And fast forward, I'm 30, I become an astrologer. And you get all your transits, because you have your birth chart and then the planets are moving all the time, you know, like all the time. The moon's always moving. And you get back all these dates of times when bad things happen or big things happen or transits happen. And I went and looked back all these difficult times. And one of them, I went straight back to that and I was like, unbelievable. And then to now be able to see that in the chart and also to be able to see, okay, this is a very difficult time, but it will pass. And to be able to help people and explain, I find astrology very healing because I can understand what is going on and what we are being taught or what experience we are going through.
So you would say everything's already written and already preordained?
Well, to an extent. Some astrologers say character is fate. You know, it is what it is, but then what do we do with it? And that's why you see an astrologer, because I do my own astrology. You can see certain transits, so you try and do the transit so it doesn't do you.
Benjamin, do you let love get you through painful times?
Well, I think pain is the price we pay for love. You know, there's a reason why emotional pain is so acute and why it shapes us. And that's because I think it probably is a form of love. When you lose someone, the pain is so acute because the love was so acute. You know, my dad died last week, and my dad wasn't a very nice person. He was a heroin addict. And so there was a great deal of suffering there. And yet there was still the love, because I knew that underneath that suffering, there was a deep, unbreakable emotional connection that a father and a child has. And so I think so often those things are intertwined and hard to unravel. And sometimes it's the difficulty to explain or to express that love, such as for him as an addict of 40 years, that can cause so much pain. I think a lot of his pain and mine as a child was the inability to have that relationship. And so that's why I think pain is so potent, because it is a form of love.
So sorry that you've lost your dad only a week ago. As a Christian, death is awful. And I think the Christian cannot say that there's any two ways about it. Death is not part of the plan. It's not, things are not meant to decay. And so I think, you know, when Jesus died and he rose again, he defeated death. When I found out who God was, and I looked at the person of Jesus and what he said and how he, you know, how he loved people, that the religious people actually said to Jesus, "What are you doing eating with scum? Like, you can't be eating with tax collectors and prostitutes." And, you know, if you're so good,
tax collectors, I understand.
Yeah, well, exactly. But even your point of, like, even though your dad, like you said, was not the nicest man, like, that for me has blessed me so much, Benjamin, in the sense of you have loved your dad, even though he didn't deserve your love, if he wasn't the nicest of man. But because he's your dad, you love him nonetheless. And I think that's helped me, even in this time and space, to be like, oh, if people are capable of doing that, how much more then is God capable of doing that?
But I think this stuff is quite obviously explained by evolution and our survival as a human species, because one thing that singles us out, or maybe singles mammals out, is that we need relations. It's in our own interests to support other people, to continue the species, to have children, to care about others. The fact that we feel that love and that connection is why we've survived as a species to be so powerful. I think that is a very rational evolutionary explanation. But when people, for example, say that God is love, well, that makes a lot of sense to me because we need love. I think it's understandable to seek God, but what you're seeking is an explanation, a way to rationalize, a way to explain these events. But I don't think that means that God exists. It means the need for an explanation exists.
I got married not too long ago, and my dad's other half at the time left him on my wedding day. Oh. I know. Who saw that one coming? And so, of course, that really, I think I was a bit depressed, to be honest, and I didn't really have the language for it, but I think it sent me into such a place of like, I'm so sad that my dad was robbed of something on the day that should have been really lovely, really joyful, and obviously my family were great, they didn't tell me at the time, but the next day, and then from getting married, we spent a long time like trying to get my dad out of that relationship, moving back to London, and it's just very, very messy, but no one came in to say, it's all gonna be all right, Swarzy, or God loves you. Like, those things are true. But you know what friends did? They just sat and wept with me. They just sat and cried, because that is a sad thing to happen. And even I'm in therapy now, and she was like, you know, I thought therapy was so... She was like, that's a sad thing to happen. And that validation was almost enough. And I don't think for Christians, there is an easy way out of the hard stuff life brings to you. There is space to grieve and to weep and to be sad about stuff. My worldview is that God is love and he's compassionate, he's slow to anger and he abounds in love. His core character is love. And so he's made things, like you said, all to be loved, but the free will is sometimes we reject that. And when you reject life, you get death. You get loads of things that go the opposite way as the way God intended for it to be. And so when those things then trickle down into your life, the Christian has hope that even though life is difficult and tricky and sad, God will use all of that for my good. And if you don't believe in God, you don't really have the hope to say, because I'm God's child, that will work itself out for my benefit. How do you square those things? If we don't know what good is and we have evil, well, we've got nothing to compare it to. We only know justice because we feel the pain of unjust.
Do you feel like it's baked in human nature to have suffering?
It's a really good question, actually. And it brings me back, even before he died, something I often thought about my dad, because he was quite monstrous for much of the time, the grip of addiction and appalling behaviours. One of my first memories is being 5 years old and the council house we lived in being raided by police. And I remember being questioned by the police officer. And that's a pivotal moment in my life. And I remember at 5 years old making a mental decision that I knew that was wrong and that I knew I wasn't like that and I was going to lead my life in a different way. And from a very young age, I was an outsider to my family and at school because I knew I was just fundamentally made a different decision to the environment I grew up in. So I don't know if this is an answer to the question, but I do believe that you know innately good and bad because I had to experience that as a young child. People that grow up in obscene environments can still work out that they're obscene.
Just to jump in, I don't believe in karma. And I want to just encourage you that you have done nothing wrong to inherit a monstrous dad. Because to believe karma is to think, oh, you've done something wrong, and so the justice is you are now going to get you just get this is your luck. I'd hate for you to believe that things in your life has happened because of karma. And as a Christian, I just want to encourage you, I don't believe that's true of your life.
The only thing I'd say is that I think the sort of discipline and humility that growing up with such acute problems brought me is one of the reasons why I think my adult life has been very privileged and in some ways easier. I've been given a lot of opportunities. I've been heavily rewarded. And I think that came from the discipline of having to grow up in an environment like that.
Well, that's good for suffering then. We have to say that there is good that comes out of the suffering because it creates skills in you that you wouldn't otherwise have if you didn't go through certain...
If you respond to suffering well, but I think did your dad suffer? You know what?
Yeah.
Because that's what... There is an element of character.
Yeah.
Where some people have terrible experiences and go, I'm not going to be like that. And some people go, oh, I'm like this because I had a terrible childhood. And there is character that, and maybe God as well, inspiring you to make those choices.